So now we'll, just take a look at some shortcuts to, make this process way more easier. And so you wouldn't have to draw a number line every single time. Okay, so whenever you see a negative adding to another negative, you would add. Okay, so for example, whenever you see -3, -5, you would add these two and keep the negative sign. So we would have -8, and what I basically did is that I added 5 and 3, which is 8, and then I kept the negative sign. Okay, and now let's just put this as green because examples are green. Okay, so negative plus a positive sign would be subtraction, okay? So let's just, for example, -2 plus 5. Now what we are now going to be doing is that we are going to be subtracting 5, 5, and 2. And that would get us 3. Now the reason why we didn't add a negative sign is because of the fact that 5, the greater number, has a positive sign and not a negative sign. Since 2 is a smaller number than 5, we would not add the negative sign in front of here, okay? So let's just let just to make this crystal clear, let me do another problem. Let's just say, baby steps. So 5 minus 3. Now, the reason why we do not put a negative sign here and we just get +2 is because 5, the greater value, doesn't have a negative sign in front of it. However, if you were doing -5 plus 3, we would get -2 because the greater value, which is 5 in this case, has a negative sign in front of it, and 3 does not. Okay? That's why that is what we do. Now let's move on, normal addition. So from what we just learned here, we are going to do these type of problems. Okay? So we're no longer going to be using a number line. So -2 plus -20. So -2 plus -20 would get us -22 because we're going to be adding 20 and 2. So we saw two negative signs. So -2 and -20. Therefore, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding 20 and 2, which gets us 22. So we're going to be keeping the negative sign because both of these values have a negative sign in front of it. Okay, now moving on to -16 plus 8. So it's basically the same process. Now this time, 8 doesn't have a negative sign. It has a positive sign right in front of it, right? We're adding. However, 16 has a negative sign in front of it. So automatically, I know that negative plus a positive means that we are going to be subtracting. Okay, so -16 plus 8 would get us 8. -8. And the reason why we add a negative sign in front of it is because 16 has a negative sign right in front of it. Now let's move on to 7 plus -5. So this answer is just 2. And now here's the cool thing. 7 minus 5 equals to 2. And 7 plus -5 also equals to 2. There's the same thing, right? So what we just learned is that 7 plus -5 is the same thing as 7 minus 5. It is just written in two different ways. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so moving on to 5.5 plus -6.9. So basically what I just did here is that I just added some decimal values just to, add some challenge to this problem. However, you're just basically doing the same thing, okay? So we see one negative sign. We notice that 6.9 is bigger than 5.5, meaning that we're going to keep this negative sign right over here. And now basically what we just need to do is we're going to just basically be subtracting 6.9 by 5.5, which just gets us 1.4. Okay, so just basically, we're just doing the same thing, okay? We're still using these shortcuts. The only reason why this problem seems a little more different is because there's just decimal values, okay? Now, moving on to subtraction without the number line. Now, 8 minus 11 would get us negative 3. So we're subtracting 11 and 8. Now, we keep this negative sign right over here because 11 is greater than 8 and 11 has the negative sign in front of it, okay? Now, we were introduced this problem over here, okay? And that's where we talked about the positive peanut and how if there's two signs that are negative over here next to each other, then we would just turn that into a plus sign. So if we would have negative 4 minus 6, we would turn this into a positive sign, giving us negative 4 plus 6, and now we know how to do these. 6 minus 4 is 2, and now there is no negative sign in front of the 2 because 6 doesn't have a negative sign in front of it, and that is the bigger number, right? Now, negative 12 minus 10. So we talked about this over here, and how if there is two negative signs, then we would be adding, okay? So we would keep the negative sign, and we would just add 12 and 10, which would get us 22. So our answer is negative 22. Okay, so we kind of did the same thing, right? We just kind of did the same thing over here in our first problem. Minus 2 plus negative 20, we're just doing the same thing. The only difference is that it's just written differently. This problem makes it addition because of that plus sign. However, it doesn't have a plus, it doesn't have a plus sign here, but it is literally the same thing. Now, I made a mistake. I didn't mean for this value to be negative 22 and this value to be negative 22. Just know that it's not going to give you the same answer like it did over here, okay? Now, 3.7 minus negative 9. Same thing. Two negative signs turns into a positive sign. So 3.7 plus 9 would get us 12.7. Okay? I hope you guys you start to understand these and like just try to do more practice problems and you'll get there, okay? Now, absolute value. This is, a completely different thing, so I should have just drawn a line over here, okay? So now let's focus on absolute value. So what is absolute value? We've definitely not heard of this before. So absolute value is a distance from zero on the number line. From the number line, okay? So absolute value, a distance from 0 on the number line. So for example, we have an absolute value of 5. Now, these two lines with a number in between means that it's a absolute value, okay? So that's what those two lines are. That's basically a symbol that represents absolute value. Okay, so absolute value of 5. So how would that look like in a number line? Okay, so we start off at 0. Let me just quickly label this. Okay, now that I've labeled this, we are going to start, using this number line. So from 0, we are going, so it's positive 5, okay? We see that it's a positive 5, therefore we are going to be moving 5 spaces to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that just gets us at 5, meaning that our answer would be 5. Just make sure you understand this, that we are moving 5 spaces to the right. 5 spaces. It doesn't really necessarily have to do with the, that we landed at 5. It's just knowing that, we're moving 5 spaces to the right. That's why it gets us to the answer of 5. Okay? And, it'll make more sense, right, when we do this problem. So, the absolute value of negative 5. So we're going to be moving to the left 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And a lot of people, just write that the answer is -5 because that's where they landed at, right? That's wrong. We are not doing this right now. We're just talking about how many spaces it's moving to either the left or right. And the answer of this would be 5 as well. Because remember, I just said it earlier. We're focusing on how many spaces it's moving. Okay, so that's basically what absolute value is. And now here's just some properties that you should know. We already familiarize ourselves with subtracting real numbers, but we'll just write this down. Now, inverse property of addition is the sum of real numbers and its opposite is 0. Okay, again, we really focused on this and this, but we're just writing this down just to make sure we know this. Okay, so where did we talk about this? We talked about this right here, right? We know that -4 plus 4 would just get us to 0, and that is a property, inverse property of addition. Another example, -6 plus 6 would equal to 0, right? And here is why. Okay, subtracting real numbers. That's basically just adding its opposite. Okay, you guys, thank you so much. Bye. Okay, thank you so much, you guys. I really hope you understood this, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye bye.